Am I the asshole? For calling my husband unreasonable for cancelling the holiday trip just because me and the kids couldn't help him in an emergency. My husband and I have been together for 4 years. I have 2 kids, 17M 19F. And their half-brother is 3 years old. This past week, my husband had an emergency. Dad had a medical emergency and wanted someone to watch our son. He asked my older son and he refused because he was going out with friends. He also asked my daughter, but she locked herself in her room to study. I was at the restaurant with my brother meeting his girlfriend for the first time. My husband ended up taking our son with him to the hospital and his mom watched him from there. He came home and was lashing out on everybody, calling us selfish and unfeeling. I tried to explain that the kids were busy, but he told me to get the F out with that bull because my older son could have skipped the hangout and watched his brother, and my daughter could have watched her brother while studying instead of locking herself in her room. He scolded me as well, but I told him I couldn't leave lunch with my brother since he was visiting town and this was my only chance to meet his girlfriend. He yelled some more than told us that he was cancelling the family holiday trip for Christmas this year. The 2 older kids were upset and said it was unfair. I called him unreasonable to cancel the trip and punish the kids and possibly me like that. He refused to discuss it later. Now me and the kids aren't speaking to him and he's saying good riddance. My husband was supposed to watch our son at the time. That's why I went to see my brother at the restaurant. The kids aren't used to watching their brother when neither parent is home. My husband just told us that he'll be spending Christmas with his family, saying he needs to be around his dad anyway. The kids said they will just go to their dad since they and my husband are still not talking. Neither of the kids are happy with how things turned out. So I feel like things have gotten out of hand and the problem got bigger. He's now choosing to basically abandon us on Christmas and also keep our son away from me and his siblings. You're the asshole. All of you sound absolutely horrid. Entitled, selfish, lazy and clueless are not a good combination. If I was your husband, I wouldn't want to go on vacation with any of you ever again. Info: do any of you even like him? Just to add, the 3 years old is your son too. Your husband had a genuine emergency, and instead of reacting with compassion you had to stay at the restaurant? This doesn't even add up. The father's wife had to watch the toddler while her husband was being treated? If this is real, I'm going with you're the asshole. You're the asshole. The word here is emergency. He needed one of you to care for a small child while his father was in the hospital and you all blew him off for everyday things. Good riddance is the proper expression here. You're the asshole. When there's a family emergency, you drop everything to help. Meeting your brother's girlfriend for the first time is not a valid excuse not to go watch the 3 years old, WTF. Clearly you put your husband very low on your list of priorities. I don't blame him for cancelling, you guys don't deserve it. You're the asshole and the 2 kids, it's not that you couldn't help him, it's that you wouldn't help him, and actions have consequences. If you don't do the work you don't get the reward. You're the asshole, everything that you were doing was not nearly as important as an emergency. Clearly your priorities are misguided. You're the asshole, you raise some selfish and entitled kids, and honestly you aren't much better. You're the asshole, you and your kids were kinda selfish, it was an emergency. You're the asshole. None of you could drop what you're doing to watch the kid while his dad is in the hospital fighting for his life? You all deserve to be left. You're the asshole. He just realized how selfish you and your children are and he isn't willing to give them an expensive experience when he recently learned of their character. I didn't hear a reasonable excuse from you or your kids why they couldn't change plans to watch someone's kid for a family medical emergency. I wouldn't want to take you all on a vacation either. You're the asshole and your kids are ours. Nothing any of you were doing was more important than supporting your husband while his father was having a medical emergency. Imagine how you'd feel if your relative was in the hospital and your husband was like, "Now I'm busy." And not only that, you let your baby visit a hospital in the middle of a COVID flu RSV surge. You're the asshole. You did all behave totally selfishly. You're the asshole. Are you really even questioning this? You're the asshole, and so are your older children for not stepping up in an emergency. He deserves better. You're the asshole. It's not that you couldn't help him in an emergency, it's that you wouldn't. You're the asshole. Medical emergency hanging out. Medical emergency studying. Medical emergency lunchy munchies. You're the asshole. Any single one of you could, and should have dropped what you were doing. You were all selfish. Nothing any of you were doing was life and death, meanwhile what your husband was dealing with could have been. You all suck. That poor man has no support from his own damn family. You're the asshole. You aren't concerned that your teen children chose not to be inconvenienced for a family medical emergency? AITA, your husband needed help and every one of you's had something to do and couldn't possibly help him in this emergency. Also, the kids are old enough to realize what they did was shitty. He's their stepfather, their brother's dad, and they couldn't help him out in a family emergency. No wonder he cancelled the trip. You all sound selfish. You're the asshole. I hope you never need his help in an emergency. AITA, his dad was in the hospital. You could have left lunch and your brother and his girlfriend could have come to your house to visit. Also, you kids could have helped for an hour or two until you got back. If you went to go on a trip, pay for it yourself. You're the asshole. My father was just unexpectedly in the hospital and my fiancé dropped everything to drive 10 hours with me to go see him. That's what you do for the people you love. You're the asshole, and so are your kids. I don't blame your husband for being upset. He had a family emergency and everyone in his household basically told him to pound sand, and you refused to take care of your child, and your children refused to take care of their sibling, in an emergency. Sorry you are awful and raised awful children, and sorry you can't see his perspective on this. You have no empathy. You're the asshole. You disregarded his feelings and refused to understand or even try to understand where he was coming from. Sometimes drastic measures gets the attention of someone when nothing else seems to be working, but even then. You're the asshole. Your older kids are inconsiderate, but you take the main guilt. I assume your son is more important than your brother's girlfriend. You could easily excuse yourself and say you had a family emergency and rush to take care of your son. It really surprises me that you have old kids and don't know how to act in situations like this. I'm 100 with your husband. Wait to see how nobody of his family had his back during a stressful moment. You're the asshole. You couldn't watch your own kid because you're at lunch but expect your husband to do it when he's having a medical emergency and needs to go to the hospital. Yeesh. You're the asshole, and your teenagers are too. His father was either fucking hospital and not one of the three of you had anything more important than that going on. Are you the sort of person to offer him change for the bus if he got into a car accident and needed a ride? Your kids sound like they take after you. Congrats, I guess. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. Wow. You and your kids really showed your colors. A medical situation is an emergency, and not one person could be bothered to watch your child? Not one person could be bothered to check on your husband in the hospital? You people need to develop some empathy. Prioritizing dinner, friend, and studying over your husband and young child in an emergency is vile. Edited: the son is your child too. The way you write here makes it sound like he's a stepkid and you're the evil stepmother. But you're his actual mother. Wow. Congratulations on raising two kids who are exactly like you. Selfish. It was a medical emergency. I divorced my husband over a medical emergency when he left me hanging. Enjoy your single life. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. The kids. All of your stuff was minor in comparison to an actual medical emergency, and you owed him to drop it in order to look after another member of your family. Your husband should go on the trip by himself this year. You're the asshole.